Hello, welcome to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Each episode, we bring you a conversation with leaders across the healthcare industry, exploring topics ranging from new treatment techniques and interventions to novel service delivery methods and business models. And now your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions, a leader in patient engagement and retention strategy. Let's explore the possibilities of a new healthcare.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Better Outcomes Show. I'm your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions, developer of the Ultimate Patient Experience Blueprint, where we get our clients, patients to say things about them like this. I have been to several PT clinics and companies over the years, and this is the first time ever that I'm hopeful about my recovery. I am so pumped! ! If you want your patients to say things like that about you, then head on over to www.rehabpracticesolutions.com/UPE. That's rehab, the letter U, practicesolutions.com/UPE, and check out the Ultimate Patient Experience Blueprint. Or you can shoot us an email directly here at support@rehabpracticesolutions.com. We'd love to chit chat with you and figure out what's going on with your clinic, with your organization, and if there's any way we can help you get reviews like that. Well, what do we have on the docket this week? This week, we're talking to a physical therapist. Her name is Teresa Moore, and she's an author, a coach, a consultant, speaker, the whole nine yards. She published a book called The Art of Assisting Aging Parents, Discovering the Journey to Honor Your Parents, Create Treasured Memories, and Live Life to the Fullest. She's been a PT for about 35 years, and now what she's spending the majority of her time doing is training and mentoring other clinicians who treat and serve patients who are in their golden years, if you would, or those patients that are getting near the end of their life. She does a lot of work, and we dive into the episode a little bit about getting away from just your standard. She's a PT, so a lot of our conversations stemmed around rehabilitation and that sort of thing, but getting out of your standard treatment protocols and really diving into some of those ancillary areas. She talked about nutrition, she talked about brain health, she talked about mobility, and all of those factors that are important for improving quality of life, especially as we age and continue to age. And she's trademarked her training. It's called the Experiage training, and the goal of it is to help people of all ages find their strengths and life vision, set goals, target concrete activities with the end goal of achieving the goals while taking part in group interactions and enjoying life. And we talked about that at the very beginning. So she started doing work in multidisciplinary group-based interventions. And we talked a little bit about the economic feasibility of that when there was a time the Medicare wasn't paying for it, now they are again, and how it all works, how you structure one of those treatments. So if nothing else, maybe you'll get some pointers and insights about how to structure some of these interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary group treatment. And just thinking about my own career, when I was a consultant for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities here in Georgia, part of our contract was running what we called the Integrated Clinical Support Team, or the Integrated Clinical Support Services for the state. And the way we decided to run it at the organization or at the firm was that instead of doing very siloed referrals and protocols and that sort of thing, where maybe physical therapy got referred and then psychology got involved and then maybe nutrition, we did as much as we could together. So we did multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary collaborative assessments, trainings for the providers that we were kind of readying and supporting, and for the caregivers for these individuals. We did all of that, or at least as much as we could, collaboratively and interdisciplinarily. So we didn't focus, I'm an OT, for example, I didn't focus solely on OT, but There were times where I was doing trainings with a psychologist and with a behavioral analyst and even a physical therapist, a speech language pathologist. All of that experience, so we did that over the course of several years here in Georgia, really opened my eyes to, one, the importance and the value of having multiple clinicians from varying clinical backgrounds putting a set of eyes on a patient, on a given patient, their circumstance and their situation, and then developing collaboratively with the patient and their caregivers and the stakeholders and then the other clinicians a plan for that patient. So Teresa talked a little bit about how she got started in that kind of work in the interdisciplinary group level treatment plans, and then she even gave a little bit of advice and tidbits about how one could start a program like that at an organization today. So without any further ado, we're going to go into the conversation here with Teresa Moore, and we're going to be talking about her Experiage training. We're going to be talking about helping folks age gracefully, and then the importance of breaking out of cookie cutter and defined rigid treatment protocols. So without further ado, here's Teresa Moore. So hey, Teresa, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful, and thanks for having me today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So for those who might not know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then kind of what brought you to doing what you're doing today?
Okay. Yes. I have been living in the Midwest all my life, and I've actually lived in 4 states, and but right here in the central Midwest. And I actually became a physical therapist 36 years ago. I had a passion for helping people, and I love science. And I loved watching the body move and analyzing that, and things like that. So that took me into physical therapy, and I did that, and I got married, had 3 children. We're in Iowa right now, where we raised our children. In fact, if you watched the game last night, which was the Yankees versus White Sox in the cornfield, I live about 1.5 hours from there. So,
oh, cool deal.
And and it was a great game, and a lot of sentiment there. But so about 15 years ago, I got introduced to multidisciplinary group therapy, and that's when my creative brain just took over. And I saw the value of it, and I just kind of blew it up. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, about how I built a framework around it. But Medicare kind of stopped paying for that, so I put it on the back burner. And then about 13 years after that, I decided to write a book, because I thought, this is very valuable information. I'm caring for my parents, and people are coming up to me and my sister saying, what can I do for my aging parents? And I thought, I've got part of the answer, at least. So I wanted to put that into a book, and I did, and it's called The Art of Assisting Aging Parents. And that is where I kind of talk about my method and what I do in there. And so about a couple of years ago, I thought, I have to pivot out of physical therapy sometime, being a clinician. I wanted to do something else. So I pivoted to now being an entrepreneur, coach, speaker, author, and consultant, and on what I do and what I really believe in. And I'm just a real geek about it, but I really believe in group therapy treatments. I see so much value in them.
Yeah. And you caught my eye with the multidisciplinary group work. So kind of explain how that worked. Like how is the program structured? You were reimbursing it through Medicare, and now that's obviously not a deal. So I guess we're not doing that so much anymore, but like, how were the treatments structured? What were the goals, that type of thing?
Okay. Yeah. And I just want you to know too, I mean, I think it was the fall of 2019, Medicare started paying for group therapy again.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, which is great, especially in the skilled care arena. But how it's structured is, therapists just get together, like, PT, OT, and speech therapy. We get together and we say, we've got these patients, they have these goals, and let's set up a therapeutic activity for these patients that play into their speech goals, occupational therapy goals, and physical therapy goals. And and it doesn't have to be all three disciplines. It could be two disciplines or even just one discipline. But we would pick out a therapeutic activity that where we could like work on balance and strengthening, along with cognitive skills and maybe even some speech skills, some verbalizations or some cognitive memory skills, things like that. So we just put our heads together, came up with some great therapeutic activities, and we set up what I call is an exceptional experience for the patient. And so we work on body and brain, and I think when you kind of work on that and bring that to the highest level, the spirit kind of comes along with it. People are happier, they see their progress, they work with each other. There's just so many dimensions to group therapy. So that's kind of what it looks like. But like for me, it could look like a Swiss ball group therapy session where I usually have one patient on the Swiss ball, and the other therapist is in the room also. And maybe we're throwing the ball back and forth to other patients in the room, and we set that up. And now we know we have all this research that explains why patients even thrive just watching each other. It's the mirror neurons that we have.
Yeah.
And even like watching the Olympics the last 2 weeks, our bodies, our muscle fibers were actually contracting in a very minuscule way, but we were doing some of the same things that the Olympians did, but we were sitting in our chairs. And it was, like I said, is very minuscule, but you're still going through it, in your body and your brain, some of the movements that they do. And even in art, when you watch an artist work, you're actually able to go through some of the same thought processes that they're going through. So it's very therapeutic. And that's what I like about it, is adding a lot of therapeutic value to our treatments.
Yeah, it's so much more. And you kind of talked about it too. Like we talk a lot about in the show about the biopsychosocial approach, that we're not just joints and muscles attached to each other, but there's, a psychosocial component, environmental component to treatment, and everything that you're talking about is kind of bringing it all together, right? We're getting the social interaction, we're getting those mirror neurons acting up, and then we're also getting the physiological benefit of the exercise itself. That's wonderful. So all of this work you did, you were doing this group treatment that stopped getting paid. So you decided to write a book, and that book was all about assisting aging parents. And then now you've kind of transitioned into this, what you call the Experi-Age of trainings, right? So kind of what's involved in the trainings, and then let's just start with what's in the trainings, and we'll move on from there to what's the goals and objectives and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And in my book, I do teach the like healthy lifestyle strategies that are what I feel are non-negotiable. We all need to be doing these things every day. So I start out teaching that. And these are things we can teach to our patients also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of downtime. Sometimes, if you give a person a rest break, you can work on breathing exercises, or give them a handout on nutrition or something like that will, impact their health. But I was kind of forgot where I was going with that.
Well, why don't you start by describing those non-negotiables then? You piqued my interest with that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And actually, I kind of figured out where I was going, but yeah. Thank goodness, got to work on my brain a little more today. But the non-negotiable would be the nutrition. I teach people how to get rid of the junk food, the processed food, and get that good diet into their life. The hydration. We see many of our patients are rehospitalized due to the fact that they're just not drinking water. And then they end up possibly with that UTI that could turn into sepsis or something like that. So it's the hydration, it's the breathing. People don't realize how important breathing is to our health and our well-being. So I teach that. I teach good sleep and sleep hygiene, how important sleep is to our brain. And of course, anything we do for our brain affects our body, and the things we do for our body affects our brain. And I think that those are just some good principles and fundamentals to live by and to teach our patients. And then I teach, the exercises for the body and exercises for the brain. And I teach mindfulness and meditation. I know I'm a therapist who all these years, would ask my patients, and I probably drove some of the people around me crazy, but I was always like, how did that feel? Or how did it, as they're raising their arm up, how did it feel to get your arm above 90 degrees today? How did that feel? And so I always brought their attention to what they were working on. And now we know that mindfulness, which is what that is, grows your hippocampus, which is responsible for your memory and your and learning. So it's all these little things we can add to and make our treatments more comprehensive, and help with the health benefits. The health benefits of this is huge. And then and again, I think there's one more thing I teach, but it's escaping me right now. But I will think of it later. But all those all those non-negotiable health strategies, I try to tie those into these treatments. So my experience training is actually a 4-step method, and that's what I developed the 15 years ago in a skilled facility. I decided to put a framework around the group therapy. So every week we did something different. And of course, that doesn't work for everybody, because, patients come in every week and we might be on week 3, but, headed into week 4, and, it doesn't all work out perfect, but I felt like it would be better than not doing it. So my first step is to help people find their strengths. And if it's your aging parent, I have you, sit down and have a conversation with your parent, and maybe just ask them a question or two about, about, like, even like, say, just tell me a story about your past, something that you were successful in, and as you're talking to your parent about this story, you're able to pull out their strengths. And I have a couple other educational tools that I use to determine strengths. But if you know your strengths, then it'll shed light on your weaknesses. And so that's important too, because as you probably know from being a therapist, there are people that don't know where their body is in space, and it's important for us to know that. So I have people like work on their strength or work on their weaknesses and also nurture their strengths. So so that is step 1. I'll try to slow down a little bit.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. And then step 2 is life vision. And I believe that we all are motivated and work from our life vision. I know for myself, when I connect with my life vision, I'm like, okay, this is who I really am. And this is, I like myself and I like who I am, but I'm just not always connected to it, because we're so busy. We're, raising children, we're helping aging parents, we're working a job, and we just don't connect with it all the time. So I have people even, working with their parents and or patients to say, and just asking these questions to figure out what's important to you in life. What makes you tick? What gets you out of bed in the morning and sets you on a road to success every day? And as people age, sometimes we have to change and tweak, how we act out that life vision. But then again, that's a challenge, and I enjoy the challenge of helping people do that. So we might change up the goals, and actually in that second step, then we start setting goals, based on strengths and life vision. We start setting goals, and I tell people, to ask their patients, well, what do you want to do? What's important to you when you get out of this facility? How do you want to carry on in your life, and what do you want to do? So then we start setting goals there. Same thing with your parents. They may have some things that they just dreamed about doing in their life. And this would be a great time to sit down with them and say, hey, let's make this happen. And I know how to do this. And we're going to set some goals, and I teach people how to set short-term goals, long-term goals, and then bring in the concrete activities that will help them, with the short-term goals to eventually meet that long-term goal.
Yeah, so you're like diving way into the weeds on motivation
Mm,
and behavioral change and all of that kind of stuff and
yes,
that stuff, huh?
yes, yes, yes. You
Yeah,
know,
that's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it seems like it's kind of like, it is comprehensive and it's based on a lot of scientific research, but I try to make it easy and I try to make it kind of like done for you. So like in my book, I give tons of questions, and in my courses, tons of questions to ask people. And you don't have to ask them everything, but it's just that back and forth conversation you have with people that really helps, with that psychosocial aspect to, keep them in the game and get them going, with that. Um, my third step is actually it's the concrete goal, the concrete activities, and really nailing down those concrete activities. And that's where I add some of the health strategies in, so that they get in that habit daily of doing these health strategies. And I teach people too, like with our patients, sometimes we have to tweak that activity, we have to make the accommodations and all that. So sometimes I'll help people to help their parents, like with meditation. I say, just set up a place in the house where they can, get away from things, put on some nice quiet music or classical music, help them relax. And sometimes when you can get into that meditative state, it actually stimulates that deep breathing. So, there are ways you can do this that are not, it's like super traditional, or, you know, and now we have our phones, we can pull up an app,
Yeah.
for that, all that stuff. Yeah. So it makes it very easy, these days to have the access to all that. And then finally, and even, as a therapist, we're into assessing and reassessing.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. We're like, okay, are we on the right road? Do we need to make some changes? What do we need to do to change this up? And or are we meeting goals? And do we need to start this whole process over? It's kind of like a never-ending process. And I don't know if you're like that, but I'm like this. I'm like always setting goals. I'm always on the road to, a new activity or one that I can add into my life. And again, I love to teach people about their brain and how to keep it creative and flexible and take risks. And that's about making those changes and setting goals and putting yourself out there. And I just think our patients deserve that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Cool deal. Well, so we've kind of gone through the four steps of the training. So how is this delivered? Are you doing this in facilities for, let's say, a nursing home or like a subacute rehab facility, or is this taking place across the spectrum? You've got family members reaching out to you for this. You've got individual clinicians. You've got groups. Kind of what's the format?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I do mainly. I've just been promoting my book, and I've been talking to places about getting this integrated into their systems. I've got one 3-hour course. It's actually it's on allied health education.
Okay.
That platform, and it's a 3-hour course on the group therapy, and it's for therapists, PT, OT, and ST. And then I have what I call my signature 6-hour course, and that is, again, it's just teaching about the group therapy, but I bring in I bring in everything to this. I unpack the research, and I teach people how to set up exceptional experiences in the group therapy treatments. And it's for for all ages. It can be pediatrics, geriatrics, even sports medicine and things like that. Just it just covers a wide range. But and then I mainly just teach therapists right now how to do the group therapy. I believe it's very valuable. I do have some courses for families and caregivers, but again, there's a lot out there right now. And I just really prefer to kind of target like the therapist and help them with this. I guess I'm a little bit more passionate about that.
Yeah, you're speaking to your people, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Cool deal. Well, I want to circle back. You mentioned something earlier, and I want to kind of dive into it a little bit. You talked a little bit about delivering amazing experience or exceptional experiences to your patients with the hope of that affecting outcomes in the long run. Can you talk about that a little bit more? What is the connection between a patient experience and the health outcomes that they may or may not, get from an encounter with a physical therapist or any kind of healthcare provider?
Okay, yes. And just bringing that down to the basics, as I really believe in experiences. And I believe in them because that is what grows our bodies and brains. And so, I delve into it on how to have this experience. Like I teach about sensory stimulation and all kinds of different, like even like the therapeutic activities of doing a family cooking group or a therapy cooking group. Somebody standing up, rolling out a pizza dough. And I have this picture in my course, but I talk about the at least 7 to 15 health benefits of just standing up and rolling out a pizza dough. It's the balance, it's the proprioception, it's the shoulder range of motion, the wrist range of motion. It's a weight shifting, it's connecting with other people in the room, in the group situation. It's a hearing, it's a seeing, it's a smell, it's just multi-sensory, and it's multi-system approach. So I believe in these experiences. They grow our brains and our bodies, and it's experiences at every age. It's having that sensory rich environment for a baby. That's where it starts. And, we continue this through our life. So I believe that if we bring this into our patients, it's that multi-systems approach. We're affecting the body, the brain, and the spirit in these ways that help us grow as people. And I think where the frustration comes in, and you might have encountered this also, is I worked in several facilities where we see the same patients over and over and over.
Yeah, frequent flyers.
Yes, frequent flyers. Yes, yes. And I start asking myself, how can I change this? How can I make an impact and make this better? How can I change this patient, so that they don't end up in the same situation again? And I think, and I just started asking myself this, and then I saw this multidisciplinary group therapy, and I saw that, how it affects the brain and the body. And, fast forward 15 years, and now we have all the research behind this. People have studied it and said, this is why face-to-face action or face-to-face interactions are healthy for us, and even developing a network of people. By face-to-face interactions and group interactions, you learn so much, and you start developing this network of people, which we call your weak ties. And those weak ties can actually add to your longevity. Because, and for me, I probably have gotten a job off of a weak tie, or I just learn these things from weak ties. I pick them up, and even I give out a lot of information to weak ties, like our waitress the other day. I found out she was studying design or like textiles, and I said, do you paint? And she said yes. And I gave her a website on how she could put her paintings onto textiles, clothing, and it's free. It's a free thing to do. And she's a student, and so that might have changed her life in a way. I don't know, and she doesn't know, and nobody knows. But by these weak ties, it really affects our life. So there's so much, and we're also finding out that social isolation kills. It's responsible for chronic illnesses. And I don't know how many times I walk past a room in a facility and think, why are they sitting in there alone?
Yeah.
It's just things like that, again, the group interaction, and some facilities are wonderful, and I work in a lot of wonderful facilities, but at the same time, I'm a real pusher for trying to make these changes. Because too, seeing Alzheimer's, knowing that Alzheimer's or dementia could be reversed or not, or not happen 90% of the time, I know there's things we could be doing different, and that's why also in my book, I ask people to start paying attention to your parents, like when they're in their 60s, and it's like 60s or 70s, make sure they're, doing these non-negotiable health strategies. Because if they want their brain and body to be working in their 80s and 90s, you've got to start in midlife, and
Yeah, you got to get a good foundation down.
yes, and building that cognitive reserve, which is, building more neural networks and strengthening them, and getting your body to its healthiest, status, will take you through life a little bit better. So like you said, it's, you just have to build it up in your middle ages.
Yeah. So, and circling back to this idea of group therapy now, the group therapy strategies and programs, I'm sure you have experience in this realm. How do the economics work out for maybe a treating clinician or an organization? Now, we've already established Medicare stopped paying for it. Now they are paying for it. Is there a point at which it makes sense to think about group therapy no matter what? Is there a point at which you're losing money, so to speak, if you're doing only one or two patients? Kind of like, how do the numbers shake out for this being a feasible option for a facility or an organization?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think in skilled care, because Medicare allows you to, right at this time, have one therapist see up to 6 patients that are doing, same or similar activities. And so I think the economic benefits there are just, they're on the table. I mean, it's a good deal. And then, of course, the less patients you get, the less economically feasible it is. But at the same time, if you outweigh the outcomes, and if you can get your patients out of the facility faster, that's good, for, that economics. And I know we spend billions of dollars a year just on social isolation, or the effects of social isolation. So it is a problem. And I think that I've talked to an occupational therapist who does group therapy, and she does it on a cash-based business. And this is with pediatrics. But I think that as we are looking as a profession to do more cash-based businesses, we can get the group therapy groups started in our clinics. I know that Medicare pays for Part B patients, but instead of paying, like, Medicare pays for the whole time they're in there. Like if they're in there for an hour, they'll pay for, the 60 minutes of therapy. Part B patients, you can charge them for one group therapy unit per session. So you might want to have them in a half an hour group and then do maybe a half an hour of individual therapy with them. I mean, I would, as a therapist, I would figure it out, what would also be economically feasible, for me, and benefit the patient. And then, there's that. And then, like, each insurance company will pay, at a different rate. I think that the more group therapy we do, and if we show the outcomes, we have good outcomes, and maybe get our patients through the rehab process a little faster, that possibly, they might start paying more for group therapy and see it as a very feasible, type of therapy treatment. And then again, just back to the cash-based, you can pretty much charge whatever you want to for a cash-based treatment. And I think too that if we get our patients working together, they may even want to continue as a group and continue to make gains, or even kind of more even like a maintenance group. Yeah, but I do see people enjoying groups. Like, I know, like, my husband and I got into it was a dancing, and it was a group, and it was right here. And actually the physical therapy clinic that I work for hosted this event, and I think we had 6 weeks of dance training. And then, but many people stayed in that group situation with the dancing, and unfortunately the pandemic hit then, and, it stopped. But I think people like groups. They like to learn in groups and they have fun. And they can even maintain and continue to, work on things. And really, it is all about maintenance too. As you age, you have to keep those neural networks strong and working for you, so that you decrease your risk of falls, so that you continue to be able to age in place, which is very, very important. At this time, to be able to age in place and avoid some of the, type, just types of things that might compromise your health.
Yeah. Well, and so I've struggled a lot, like internally, with the idea of cash-based payment. And if everyone moves to cash-based, and it presents an access problem, right? I've done a lot of consulting with folks in the Medicaid area and managed care. And it's like, well, people like that wouldn't be able to afford, $125 a session or whatever, some people are charging for a physical therapy appointment. But the idea of being able to offer high value, high impact services that are being able to be offered at a lower price point because you're doing them one to many instead of one to one, really helps increase that access, right? Like maybe somebody pays $20 for a group treatment, and the therapist is still making a good healthy living, but the patients are able to access the services they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. That's cool. Let's see here. So we've talked a little bit about kind of the whole gamut, aging in place. We've talked a little bit about the experiential factors of treatment and kind of how it all works together, mind, body, spirit. It's been a whole lot of information that we covered. But if there's kind of one or two main takeaways you would want the listener to walk away from the episode with, what would they be?
I would say not to be afraid to, make your treatments more comprehensive. There are so many, I would say, even like hidden benefits that I have been actually even discovering as I do more research and teach my courses. But, I even came across the other day, and this might be common knowledge to most, but it was about play. And there is some actual continuing education and real treatment that just involves play. And play is very good for our brains. And we all need to continue to be curious and flexible as we age. And so, have you ever thought about telling your patients with their home exercise program to go home and play?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that sounds odd. It doesn't sound right. We've been handing out these same exercise programs year after year after year, and and keep an open mind to the things out there that we may not know about, and how play and it takes away pain. You're able to stretch better, you're able to strengthen. There's so many benefits to playing. And if I can describe play, like people are like, well, what do you mean play? And it's not board games. You don't go home and play board games. But when you play with each other, you interact with people. And again, it's that group, it's that kind of that group and the face-to-face interaction. And, I would say, yeah, as a therapist, be open to, I just really feel like as a profession, there are things that we're missing out on. So I would say be open, be flexible even as a therapist to all these new techniques coming out that will enhance, what you do as a therapist.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. Before we get off, where can people find out about you, find out about your courses, your work, your book, all of that good stuff?
Okay. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun to talk, and especially to another therapist.
Yeah.
That's always fun for me. But yeah, you can find me. I have a website, and it's just teresamurr.com. And there, if you want to, talk to me about a particular treatment or whatever, I do have a 20-minute free telephone call that I will do with you to strategize on maybe a difficulty or problem or question that you have. You can find my book on there, but I actually direct people to Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com to buy my book. And my course, my 6-hour course, it is explained a little bit on my website. And if you have any other questions, again, I would love to chat with you and set up a call. And yeah, I try to run my course every couple of months, and for therapists. And if you have any questions too about your parents or aging, and I will gladly, talk to you about my proactive aging process, which I just pretty much explained, but it's definitely a proactive and start now. It's a great time to start now. But I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and you can find me there just under my name, Teresa Murr.
Yeah, and spell your last name, because it's
okay, sure.
Doesn't follow the rules of phonics.
No, no, that does not. It's Moerer. Yeah, and my first name has no H. It's just Teresa.
All righty. Well, thanks, Teresa, for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Teresa Moore, talking about aging in place and aging and assisting folks that are aging. And I think it's interesting whenever we do an interview like this with somebody who is a clinician and they're doing something great in the healthcare space, more often than not, I would say almost 100% of the guests on this show, anyways, that are clinicians, seem to have the same viewpoint that we here at the show have about a biopsychosocial approach. They might not call it biopsychosocial, but even Teresa talked about how there's more to healthcare and there's more to improving clinical and functional outcomes than simply objective measures like range of motion and strength and endurance and all that kind of thing. She was talking about, nutrition and emotion and the brain and mirror neurons and the neuroscience behind quality of life. And I think it's just fascinating that no matter where you are in healthcare, the idea that you can get away with simply following or simply addressing one of the multiple or myriad of factors that are affecting any one of the patients that you might be seeing is fallacy at its best, right? You're always going to have to address something else. I use the example of shoulder pain or something like that just because I own an outpatient multidisciplinary clinic. I've worked in orthopedics for a long time doing shoulder rehabilitation, but more often than not, when somebody is referred with the diagnosis of shoulder pain, we spend some time in their initial evaluation, their assessment, talking about their shoulder and what it's limiting. But then we usually end up diving into all of the other ways that it's impacting their quality of life, what other factors are addressing it, especially back when I worked with veterans at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I mean, you talk about patients who would have like a PTSD flashback or some kind of stressor like that, and it would increase their pain. I was just on a podcast last week, and the host was asking about pain, and basically he was asking what is pain, and we've written about it on the site. You can go check it out at rehabupracticesolutions.com. But we were talking about that and how the difference between me, for example, and the patient that might be sitting across the table from me at any given time could be the same exact injury. We could have the exact same level of dysfunction, but one of us might have better clinical outcomes than the other one. And most of the time, that has nothing to do with the biological or the healing process, the physiological healing process. A lot of it has to do with the psychosocial aspects of health, the environment, the support system that we may or may not have in place, our past history with injury or doctors or healthcare. And it's good to see other clinicians like Teresa taking that message to the street. So If you like the show, folks, head on over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. It helps people find it. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can find us anywhere that you can get a podcast, basically. Just look for the Better Outcomes Show. You can also find us at www.betteroutcomes.show, and you'll get all the show notes there, links to all our guests, LinkedIn accounts or websites or resources that they might have for the listeners. And again, that's www.betteroutcomes.show. And my shameless plug before I get out of here, if you are looking for a way to develop a strategy or system at your clinic or organization and develop the process of care to allow you to gain new and more patients, to engage those patients throughout the treatment cycle or their relationship cycle with you and your organization, retain those patients both during their initial course of care as well as subsequent courses of care. If you're doing it right, they should be coming back to you for more and more things whenever they have need in the future. And also have former patients become a reliable source of word-of-mouth referrals, then I'd encourage you to check out the Ultimate Patient Experience Blueprint. The exercise we guide you through in this program help you identify critical elements in your strategic thinking and messaging that's required in order for you to develop whatever it's going to be, marketing templates, patient education handouts, clinic-specific forms, you name it. We basically give you a manual that your organization can use to not only develop future campaigns and marketing initiatives, but also new business development plans, to guide quality improvement plans, and to increase the number of patients that are completing their course of care at your organization. Again, if that's something that you're interested in, you can either shoot us an email at support@rehabilitationpracticesolutions.com. We'd love to set up a time to chit-chat with you and talk about your clinic, your organization, and if it makes sense for us to do some work together. Or you can head on over to www.rehabilitationpracticesolutions.com/UPE. That's rehabilitationpracticesolutions.com/UPE for the ultimate patient experience. Until the next time, everyone, be safe, be healthy. I will talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Our hope is that you walk away from each episode informed, equipped, and empowered to push the boundaries in your own practice or business. We want to give you the tools to help you build strong, long-lasting relationships with your patients and clients, helping meet their goals, improve their health, and achieve better outcomes. Learn more at www.rehabilitationpracticesolutions.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.